So Joe staff or walking stick, doesn't really matter. In this exercise I want to get the idea of using the centre. So I'll start with this foot forward, and you can see how I'm loosely holding the cane, and the rocking motion is basically what's rotating the stick. On the other side, so once again, and I'm just giving it a little help to get it started with my hand. Basically, the rocking motion is causing it to move. And so if I were to come forward, do it this way as well. Oops, tangled. Doing it at an angle like this also helps this slide more easily than if I was just doing it in front. That crook would be catching me, and it may catch you. As I say, this is not modified other than slightly opened with heat to make it suitable for my hand. So once again, oops. I'm not sure it matters which way round your feet are. But basically, it's getting this connection between the centre and whatever it is you're using. So the wrist obviously allows it. If I grip like anything and just do this, well, sorry, if I grip like anything and just go, I'm not going to get far. So I let the wrist lets it happen. My centre is doing it. So once you've got this feeling of where your centre is, as I was emphasising in another video, it's this settling feeling. Now, so what's happening is actually where my centre, which is a couple of inches below my belly button, is actually aligning itself. If I align it over there, then that's where it comes on target. If I align it there, that's where it comes on target. If I fail to align it and I just swing, it sort of comes back online, possibly out of habit, but it also goes a long way offline. So this is what's happening. I'm actually using my centre as my absolute guide to where this is stopping. I don't want to give the impression that you're just sort of aiming for the surface of the target. You're obviously aiming into the target, otherwise you're just going to wrap it, you're not going to really hit it. But as I've pointed out, if you want follow-up and if you miss, and of course, you know, posts and Christmas trees don't fight back, but people dodge and duck and weave and put objections in your way. So the point of this is that I have a controlled strike, and I have a possibility of follow-up, or I can withdraw into another technique. Now I'm doing this, as I have said in previous videos, from a practical point of view, because we can't get in the dojo and we can't sort of enact the things we might do there, so I'm giving it that self-defense idea to make it a bit more interesting, but at the same time trying to make it relevant to Aikido. Now in the dojo, you're sort of enacting a drama. Both of you have a jo, or one has a jo, one has a bokken, or both have a bokken. And, you know, this is not terribly likely to be encountered in real life. You might meet somebody with a hiking stick who's skilled at using it, but you'd be a bit unlucky. So the point is that when you're doing it in the dojo and you're using similar weapons, there's obviously a sort of game going on. You're both using the weapon in this sort of kata way. When in reality, I mean, if I am walking along and, you know, got my stick, and somebody comes at me from say my right hand side, and they come at me fast, do I insist on getting my stick out to hit them? Or do I use another Aikido method and simply take them at that, like that, at that range? You know, they've got within my stick movement, and now my hand is the more suitable weapon. But once again, note how I'm using my hand like the weapon, and I'm allowing them coming in to provide a lot of the force. I'm just providing a solid base against which they crash. So this is a slight problem with defence. People can get this idea that because you've got a stick in your hand, then you've got to use the stick. Well, of course you haven't. You use whatever's going. And I mean, another very likely scenario is that you ski, and a quick person may well be able to jab that down or grab it. So what you might learn in the dojo would be a method of clearing that. But okay, if you, let's suppose it's grabbed, you don't want them to have the weapon, but it's not your total concern. Bang! Into the knee or something. So don't let the weapon entirely dictate your mode of defence, because you'd be basically, instead of having 5 limbs and a head and feet and knees and elbows and whatever else is going on, you're just saying my only weapon is that part and that part. I've got 2 weapons. Okay, it's hard, it's solid, it doesn't bleed, but you mustn't forget all the other potential weapons that you have, and you mustn't forget to move. So that's why I wouldn't become too fixated on the weapon. It's obviously useful to be able to use it. It's a way of extending your reach, but it's not helping you close in. And if somebody's really determined to come and get you, you may only get 1 or 2 strikes. I mean, they're not going to be fencing and all that. Somebody's going to try to get within that, because if they're struck by this part of it, it's not going to do much. You need the strike to be here, and then it doesn't need to be very hard. So that's why I have emphasised actually hitting something over how hard you hit it, and why I've emphasised forming a body structure which is automatically strong, because this is automatically strong. It's not just sort of, yeah, that would hurt, not denying it. But where's your follow-up? And where's the real strength in that if that's what is really required? If that's a knife, it's a serious business. Bang! you want to be damn sure that when you strike that, that's going to come out the hand or something's going to be broken. So that's those are considerations to bear in mind. Don't get too fixated on the weapon. Whatever it is, what you do in the dojo with somebody else with a stick or with a bokken is entirely different from actually using it in a practical application. I mean, there are loads of other characteristics, like, you know, you probably have big boots on or unsuitable clothing of some description. You know, you may have fairly heavily padded clothes which don't allow you great ease of movement. A whole load of things, the ground. So, you know, the dojo is a perfect condition. Okay, so I showed you this time, basically. I demonstrated this one where you chamber it on the shoulder when you come down. Now you can take it up to the other shoulder as well. You can make a little drill out of it, going backwards and forwards. Because Aikido is also about moving offline. So, as you strike, enter, but also take this foot round behind. This has the effect of taking you offline, so if something is coming in this way, and I step and strike, I've gone offline. So however much force is coming down that way, it's not going to worry me. And I have the choice of instant entry. In fact, I don't even have to withdraw the jo. I can just enter with my feet. This is called, so I don't want to overburden this with technical terms, but sugiashi. Sugiashi is useful in this respect because, okay, you've made your strike, stepped offline, triangular posture. Now, okay, suppose you have missed, you may withdraw the jo and ski. So one way or other, either fully withdraw the whole thing and enter, or you may just withdraw the back end and enter, or another alternative is to enter directly. This is Sugiashi, T-S-U-K-I A-S-H-I, 2 words, and it comes from the same stem as a ski, because basically what is happening is a thrust, but you're thrusting by moving, so you're moving directly in. So you've made your strike, and let us suppose you may have hit a knife coming in, or weapon or whatever, you've lowered it, and then you directly step in. So what's happening here, and this is useful in Aikido for making distance, is that you've moved and you followed. And you can go backwards, but obviously over rough ground that might not be very safe. So you've moved and you followed. And all the time you've got this low centre of gravity. Now, so here we are. I can go, or I can just simply my feet, keeping approximately the same distance when I'm entering. Now this is a wooden post concreted into the ground. It's probably a lot sturdier than somebody on their pins. So even without doing anything else, simply with my body structure and movement, I'm getting a rapid follow-up. Now if I do the two things together, I execute ski, and at the same time I do sugiyashi, then I'm multiplying the force I can apply. But my point is here really, what I'm trying to say is that you've struck and gone offline and you've got the instant follow-up. You're not obliged to do anything else, just enter, enter. As opposed to something along the lines of strike, enter. That's slower. This is very quick. Yep, quick and strong. And this is what people forget in Aikido so much of the time. They find they're up against a big tall person like me, and they've sort of put their foot there or something, and they just haven't gone far enough. Well, the answer is sugiyashi. It can be a little, may only need a little sugiyashi, but it's a way of adjusting your distance while keeping your posture. And once again, you've got the belly face forward. And of course, it all depends on the surface you're on. If you're in a field full of grassy tussocks, well, you know, forget it. You have to adapt. But that's the basic plan. So that's a useful Aikido step which can get you, make a lot of techniques more available to you. And you use it quite a lot anyway, actually, even a tall person would. Anyway, enough of that for the moment. Now, I said I wouldn't use too much jargon, but now might be a good time because you can always replay it. But if I step offline, this is entering. I'm entering in. I'm going irumi. And it's a small tenkan, it's a small turn. And as you can see, it takes me offline, keeps me in a strong position, and it also allows me to enter across the body, you know, if this has been partially successful. Now, as well as strikes, there is also the option of, well, many times you hear about blocks, and we say Aikido doesn't use block. And I would say that a block is something like this, when you've got a down-coming strike, a side-coming strike, yeah, and all you're doing is you're stopping it coming in. You've got no immediate counter. Now, with regards to Aikido, you can be stepping offline, and you have a choice about how you use this. I can just use it to lay it on an incoming arm or weapon. So, you know, from this particular form of ski, that comes down on top of the weapon, but my Jo staff stays online, and I can enter. So this is getting a bit fancier maybe for, you know, practical self-defense. But basically you're taking the weapon, their weapon down, and if you've developed this idea of sinking your weight, you're taking them down. And this of course is a key concept in Aikido, that you're lowering your weight. Suppose it might be your arm. You're just using your hand. It's just kata. They're punching your face. And so imagine it's coming in from that side. I simply cut and I drop. Or I I catch it in the elbow. You'll see this in many of the videos. I'm using the principles, same principles, whether it's an empty hand or whether it's a weapon. You have the same principle of dropping, and then you can move on from there into Iraminagi or something. You're not necessarily striking, but you could just strike. You could just knock the knife out, or whatever it is. But it's all happening with this. This is why, going back to this exercise, just get this real feeling of how the centre controls the action. Doesn't really matter which foot is forward. Remember, this walking stick is a new thing to me. I'm just applying Aikido experience to a walking stick that I bought. It's not a special walking stick, it's just, and I haven't practiced that much with it, just a bit. But I'm just applying the basic idea. Okay, so I hope that is helpful. I'm sorry if these aren't terribly structured, some of these videos, but I tend to just do it as I go along. So if I repeat myself, please forgive me.